going away, I lived out on the West Coast in Arizona for 10 years. Between 2003 and 2015 is where I first heard of hemp. And, at that time it was sort of taboo, but I started to learn about what the many uses of hemp were. And so as I learned and I picked up more information, and the internet is a wonderful thing. Most times,
Hey guys, it's Mandy with Global Hemp Association. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about the opportunity to build a relationship and connect this supply chain. I mean, after all, that's why we started the association. Our association was built on the foundation of connecting supply chain, building relationships, and helping you grow your business. Anyone from farmers, manufacturers, and distributors, people that are passionate about the supply chain, and those creating products selling into biofuels, plastics, textiles, construction, and building materials.
And we're live. Hello. Derick, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, everybody else. It's online. Oh, I'm excited about this conversation, about everything that you've got going on. I was just in the background talking to Derick and got into some conversations and was like, wait, let's wait and save these for online, because there's lots going on, and I love connecting people. And so for those of you that don't know Derick, please chime in. We will be sharing contact info, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions for either myself or Derick. But thank you very much for everybody that supported us, for our sponsors with our seed trials. Our data is now out to our sponsors, which has been really exciting. So, and then we will be presenting a lot of the data and diving into some of it at NoCo. So for those of you that are going to NoCo, I hope to connect with you there. But Derick, I want to pass this over. We only have an hour. Every time it seems like we don't have enough time, or it seems like an hour is a long time. And at the end, it always goes by fast. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do for those who don't know you. And you've been in the industry for
a minute. Wow. So we've been growing hemp now in South Carolina since 2020 under Bossville Farms. We started actually practicing and testing some of our skills in 2019 in Texas and whatnot. So we've moved our operation here to South Carolina because our greatest landmass is here. But I am Derick Muhammad. I'm a graduate of Prairie View A&M University, Prairie View Agriculture and Mechanical University, proud graduate from 1990. And, I graduated with an engineering degree. And one of the things that has always really, really, really stuck to me is our farming background, our tree farming background in particular, for my family. I come from a family of loggers in South Carolina, and we've grown trees most of my life. So that's pretty much my background. Both my grandfathers were farmers. One of my grandfathers, my paternal grandfather, he was the older of the two by like a 20-year separation. And he taught me farming and how to grow. My maternal grandfather taught me about trees and land and understanding the business side of things. Neither of them were educated. I think my maternal grandfather, his highest grade level was the 3rd grade. And my mother, after him, it's crazy, right? But and what he did for us is huge. But he left us about 2,000 acres of land to cultivate and continue to push the family legacy. So I'll get into that a little bit more here in a few minutes.
Well, you can keep going. I would love to hear about it. And of course, just for anybody else that may be wondering, we will be talking about those pictures behind him. I'm excited to hear about who they are, as well as your team. So yeah, tell me a little bit about your team. How did you guys come together? What really made the transition for you to say hemp is it?
Well, in 2018, I lost my mother. And she was the president CEO of our logging company. And so we were looking for ways to kind of turn the operation to something new and profitable. My uncles, my family is very unique. I think My grandfather started a logging company in the 40s, and it continued until 2018. His children, all of them worked, pretty much all of them worked for him at one point in time. He had two children that never really worked for the business, but most of them came together. They built a very successful logging business, here in the Low Country in South Carolina. Gordon Logging Company is the name of the company. And that business continued to grow. And I learned a lot from him regarding trees and land. And he told me, he said, the biggest lie that's ever been told is money don't grow on trees. And I thought that was like crazy at that time. I was like, man, what are you talking about? And he would say to me, he's like, well, you see those trees over there? And he would point at pine trees or oak trees at that time, because that's what we were into. He said, when I cut those trees down, I drag them across the scale at the farm, at the plant, they pay me money. He said, so it proves to you that money grows on trees. He said, well, once I do that, I go buy more land. And so that was one of the first lessons that he taught me. The next lesson is everything comes from the land. And he would tell me, never sell the land. And because he would point at his truck, he said that old beat up truck, pickup truck that I have, that came out of the ground. The clothes that we're wearing comes out of the ground. The food that you eat comes out of the ground. And so he says, to be truly independent, you must own your own land. So those lessons stuck with me throughout the years.
Yeah.
As I continued to travel and see the world. I come from a very small town in South Carolina. It's called Estill, South Carolina. And you will know people from Estill because we pronounce it Estill. Everyone else is a different way. Estill is mostly what most people say, but it's Estill, South Carolina. Small town, one traffic light in the center of town, that type of thing. The county seat is in Hampton County, and that's where we actually started growing hemp on a commercial level. So, my grandfather was very, very smart, very, very wise. And being his grandson, he gave me a lot of wisdom, a lot of pearls. He actually cried, though, when I left to go to college. One of the things that he would tell me all the time is, I can teach you everything you need to know about business. And he probably was correct at the time. I think what I really learned by traveling and going off to college in Texas is how, what the rest of the world was doing,
Yeah.
I left that small town in the mid 80s to go to college in Texas at Prairie View. And I actually started out at Bishop College in Dallas, Texas, and then transferred to Prairie View after Bishop College closed in 1987. So, I was away from home. Transition was crazy. I didn't know anybody in Texas really, but two friends of mine and I, we left Bishop College, headed to Prairie View, graduated. But he told me I could probably teach you everything you need to know. And I believe that he probably could, but making that transition to the big city from that small town really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I wasn't privy to as I was growing up between, till the age of 17. And so going away, I lived out on the West Coast in Arizona for 10 years. Between 2003 and 2013 is where I first heard of hemp. And, at that time it was sort of taboo, but I started to learn about what the many uses of hemp were. And so as I learned and I picked up more information, and the internet is a wonderful thing most times, when we use it for education. And so I found a lot of information out there about hemp and about CBD in particular at that time, because the industrial side of it was not mentioned, very, very remotely in some other countries and things of that nature, but nothing in the United States at that, in the early 2000s and up till probably 2015 or so is when I first started to see the textile side.
Yeah.
But learning more and more about the plant and coming home and seeing our business, my uncles and my mom, they were getting older. and they wanted to retire, but they didn't have, we didn't have a way for them to pass the business on, because most of my generation, being the first generation to go to college, we kind of all found other places to live. I stayed in Dallas for many years.
Sure.
And then moved.
Getting away from that small town.
It was just, you want to see what goes on, experience different cultures and whatnot. So, once I left Texas and I moved west to Arizona, further west to Arizona, I got to experience a totally new, entirely different culture there. And I'm glad I did, because, again, that's why I first started learning about CBD and things of that nature. Of course, cannabis in general on the West Coast is pretty much, everywhere you go, you can pretty much get a great education on cannabis and things of that nature. Anyway, moving home, it was interesting because the business was pretty much slowed, and hemp, was a booming thing at the time for CBD, and I literally one of my mentors, Carson R. Thompson. You should go look him up. He's a spry 84-year-old. He helped build the Tandy Corporation, Tandy Leather, and the Bombay Furniture Company. Huge in the business world, but he's a very down to earth, very great teacher. And he and I became friends because he wanted to learn more about social media at the age of 80 something, I think, or 78, something like that. And I knew a bit about social media, so we sat down, we became good friends, and we literally worked on the business plan for Bossville for over a year. Every day almost, we put in time.
Yeah.
Researching, flushing out, information that we needed. We did financials for 5-year projections for 5 years. We flushed it totally out, and he would tell me stories about, his triumphs with Tandy Leather and the Tandy Corporation. And many of you probably remember those stores as a Radio Shack. Mm-hmm. Radio Shack was huge, and he was a big part of it. The Bombay Furniture Company was huger, and he was a big part of that as well. Awesome. And the leader, So I learned a lot about the business side for him, but he cautioned me on many occasions about being careful to consider all of the aspects of what you're getting into. And he also told me, the only way to make it happen is to go do it. And so once we flushed out everything, we were sure that, my plan was solid. I hopped out and started to grow. The first year we grew a total of 5 acres in Hampton County. But we
for CBD. Yeah,
for CBD. So we grew 3 acres on some of our land, which we did pretty well, because we knew all the things that we needed to do. There was no water source there in the beginning, so we drilled and we put a well in place. We understood, just what we needed to do pretty much to get it done. And we were pretty successful that first year. We grew there, and then we also grew in Hampton County, South Carolina, which is Jacksonboro, which is near Charleston. And we grew 2 acres or so there, which was very successful as well. So that was the first year. Yeah. And so we did, in 2020, we did pretty well. The growing piece was the easy part. To believe it or not, the second pieces of the puzzle of getting it processed then became, where we ran into a lot of issues. And so COVID was going on, so there was a lot of people staying at home. Nobody was really at work. We found a couple of places that we could use for drying facilities, but that kind of went south. But we continued to work. What I did find is that throughout the entire process. When the bubble was beginning to burst in 2020 and 2021, we were fortunate that we understood branding, number one, and we understood that we had to build a brand in order to stay in business. So what you see behind me is some of those things that we've been working on now for the last 3 years to build. Just like everybody else in the hemp industry who are new experts, I call us, with the limited knowledge that we have, we're doing the best that we can. And we've proven out a lot of the theories that were out there in the beginning.
So are you fiber now? I mean, I see some pretty crops back there. Are you guys doing fiber?
So we've done fiber and we've done CBD, but yeah, so you see those pictures there in the background. My son and myself, we are standing at one of our stands. We work with Clemson University, Kelly Flynn at Clemson to do some variety trials. So I was sitting down with my son last night. We have literally grown about 15 species of cannabis or hemp in South Carolina. And we've grown now in 5 different counties in South Carolina successfully. That is fiber that you see in the background. Our tallest plant with that trial was 23 feet tall. And that was a Puma version or Puma variety.
Okay.
And that's what you see there. My wife on the other side here, she's standing in our Genma trial. We took a picture of her. Puma and Genma are very similar in their phenotypes or physical attributes. They both grew very, very tall, pretty rapidly, surpassing. I think our average plant was about 12 to 15 feet tall, and the tallest of those were 23, as I said. And then Genma came in close second as far as height goes. And then Abound is one of the versions of industrial that we grew, and Laura. They were both.
The last one was?
Laura.
And the one before that?
The one before that was Abound.
Abound.
ABOUND. And so those were very short, but they grew flowers very quickly. Yuma grew to about 4.5 feet. Yuma with the Y, and it had flowers. It flowered very, very early in our climate. And this is information from the low country of South Carolina. I want to make that distinction because it is a big distinction. All climates in the state are the same, as you all know. TS77 was another genetic that we grew, and Anka. And neither one of those really grew at all in our climate or in the trials that we did. So again, at the end of the process or the end of the growing season, Kelly came, she took her samples, and I was like, well, what do we do now? And she was like, they're yours, do what you want. And so I started to.
Look at you now.
Right. I was like, okay, what do we do? So it took a while, but I have been fortunate really to visit a lot of farms and a lot of farmers in various states, and I built a huge network of people that I know. Going to conferences and visiting with people. We're the small guys and we get overlooked quite a bit, but we do big things here, and that's why it's Bossville. But I was given that by my grandfathers, but
okay.
I just understanding the different how the plant then matures, and then what do we do next with them. Once you grow it, it's the next stage is normally where the chasm exists between getting it processed and making it into something useful. So we were able at that time to network with a few people, and one of my friends, Precious Jennings, hey Precious, she may be on today. She came. She and I put our say again. Yeah, she and I put our heads. I didn't hear you.
I just said shout out to Precious.
Yeah, shout out to Precious. I appreciate you, Precious. But Precious and I put our heads together, and we built some primitive tools. We researched and found some tools of how hemp was broken back in the day to separate the fibers in the herd. And so we built those, and in my backyard, we were out there just hammering out, some hemp stalks, and then we used some combs and combed out the fibers. So we have actual fibers and herd that we grew on our farm. It's not a lot, but it's mostly for demonstration. But we have that, and now it gives you the opportunity to be able to put something in someone's hand and say, "Hey, this is where this comes from. This is what hemp fiber looks like." Because in the beginning, no one knew. I mean, no one in my circle knew anything about how to do this. At least if they did, they didn't tell me, and what. But we figured it out for the most part by just networking and continuing to build. Like you and I met at a conference in Winston-Salem a couple of years ago. Just continuing to build and continue to make it happen. It hasn't been easy, but what I found in some of my research, and I'll take you back really quick. In South Carolina, hemp was first used on a commercial basis in the 1700s. And it was mostly used for maritime purposes, or, naval ships and ropes and things of that nature. There was such a thing as black hemp and white hemp. And in Charleston, and they got their names from their uses, basically. The black hemp was the ropes that were tarred so that they can make them waterproof for the ship's anchors and sails and things of that nature. The white hemp were spun into finer versions of the fibers to make clothing and sack bags and other industrial purposes or textile purposes. And so that was interesting to know. But hemp had big fights in South Carolina when it came to other commodities, rice being the number one, and believe it or not, the second one is the dye. What's the dye? Precious is gonna kill me for forgetting this, but rice was a big component, commodity at the time that all of the farmers were in a lot of debt in South Carolina. So they used rice to pay their bills, indigo. So rice and indigo were the two huge commodities in the early 1700s. In 1730, though, there was a proclamation made from England, and they commissioned a couple people to come over and start trials, and they were passing out seeds to everyone who would grow. And so in the mid 70s, between 1700s, between 1730 and 1738 or 40, there were huge advances on bounties, they called them, paid for people to grow hemp in South Carolina, because it was found that the soil and the climate here were great to produce hemp. And at one time, it was said that South Carolina could produce enough hemp to source to the entire England and some of the surrounding cities in Europe. So it was a big deal, but it never really caught on because people were really stuck on rice and indigo at the time. Then, of course, the Revolutionary War happened, and it became a battleground for a few years. When it came back in the late 1700s, then cotton kind of jumped on the bandwagon. Of course, we all know the history of cotton in the South, and we're trying to help turn that about. So hemp has a great history really in South Carolina. We've done a few things. It was said in, I think, 1766, more of the backwoods, they call them farmers, they grew enough hemp that they thought hemp was going to be one of the biggest commodities in the country. But, it just didn't happen. Prohibition came about and things just kind of went south. Also, I don't think many people know about logging and the history with hemp. Especially in South Carolina, pine trees are a big commodity in the Low Country and in South Carolina in general. And so tree farming, the lobby for those who were in tree farming really pushed down a lot of the advances that hemp had made, because trees were, of course, being used in great numbers at that time, because we were building roads and houses and expanding west at a very rapid rate. And so trees became one of the big commodity producers for the state, and still is to this day. We were in logging, my family's been in logging for over 70 or nearly 70 years now, and so that's a big testament to how strong that industry is in this area. Hemp does threaten to supplant it, because as we all know, 1 acre of hemp can produce as much as 4 acres of trees, and we believe that we have a great opportunity to produce here.
So I have a question about your trials. You said that, some of the varieties you mentioned flower early. What is expected yield, or what are you guys getting per acre on some of those varieties, like Genma, Yuma, Puma?
Well, the Puma will produce the heaviest or the most tonnage because it grows so big so rapidly. We don't have I don't have at my fingertips those numbers, but Puma and Genma substantially help when it comes to tonnage. Yuma is a smaller plant. It will grow smaller in this region, and it's just a little bit less of a heavier or a smaller stock producing plant than
maybe more fiber focused than a
right, exactly, more fiber focused, definitely. Go ahead.
Are you guys processing? Are you guys moving any of the material through processing?
Well,
other than like you did in your backyard on small scale.
Right. So we've started on a journey, so to speak, to create a processing center here in the Low Country. We've already got incentives from the Department of Commerce, South Carolina, and we're working with our local business people here in the Low Country and economic development to build a processing center in the Low Country to handle the needs of farmers that are going to be growing hemp in the very near future. This past year, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. This past year.
I was just going to say, this past year, we worked with Biofield and David Canby and to grow some Yuma. It didn't do that well, but we're looking forward to growing Puma and Genma. We've sourced some seeds and we're looking to purchase those and get some seeds in the ground. About 500 acres worth of Puma and Genma this spring.
Excellent. How are you guys harvesting?
Harvesting is done the traditional way. We use some of the sickle blades to cut the plant down and then bale them or bundle. And so I have my own, it's not necessarily a theory, but I have a method that I'm working on to help preserve the fibers and some of the herd loss by bundling instead of baling. In the early days, bundling was huge because It helps keep the fiber strong, longer and strong.
And the same, all going the same direction, right? There's a lot of talk about it being, feeding through in the same direction to keep the fibers cleaner or get them cleaner. And
exactly.
Yes. Yeah. I'm interested in that. Are you retting, like laying it down to ret, or?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we did ret. Those are some of the notes that we were able to take this year. We retted them for a couple weeks before we actually brought them in to process them, and we bundled them. We didn't bail. One, because we need equipment for that, which we didn't have at the time.
Yeah.
And we want to prove out that theory. And coming from a logging background, having a bundle is similar to trees. You see a lot of driving down the highway, similar. So, we want to prove out some of those theories, and I think that in the coming year or so, we'll be able to bring some more of that data back and share it with the world.
So from processors, right, that you'll be selling material to or potentially be that processor, what are some of the key things they're looking for from you as a farming group or a farmer?
So I want to close the loop kind of on this.
Sure.
The farmer, I want the farmers to be a part of the processing.
Yes.
And the reason being is, number one, it's going to help their bottom lines, right? Number two, it gets them more involved in the growing process and more entrenched in the growing process. And they can help bring to us the types, what we're looking for. So if you tell a farmer, I'm looking for a plant that's going to give me this type of fiber or this type of herd, I need these seeds. Being a part of that, the closed loop process helps them to understand, okay, I brought this to the table. Let's look at it and see if it works or if this is what you want. If not, I can go back and do something else. But having them to be a part of that and being paid from the offshoots that plant that they grew brings, I think that's very, very important, because in order to keep farmers farming, we're going to have to help them make money.
Yeah.
And the big deal right now is farmers just aren't making money.
Yeah.
And especially, Black farmers in the state of South Carolina, the ones that I've talked to, very, very difficult to really bring home a living wage so that you can take care of your family and pay bills and whatnot. So we're working on a actual plan to bring that into fruition, where farmers who are growing for us will be a part of the processing piece or understand the processing piece. And
almost like a co-op model, would they be paid a portion of what they bring basically, or, okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that, call it whatever it is, whatever we want to call it, right? Being able to give them a piece of that higher value material once it's been processed or turned into even a composite, right? It's because, like it or not, our farmers are always cut off at the knees with price, and we've really got to change that paradigm. And
right.
Cool.
And see, now, we'll be a part of being able to say, your products went to the animal bedding industry, and these profits were made from that particular offshoot from that industry.
Yeah.
You'll get an override from that in some kind of way. But yes, the co-op model is what we've been looking at. Co-ops are a way of doing business, and they're a business model that we have explored. And I think it's going to really help us here in the low country of South Carolina.
Excellent. Well, I'm interested in how trials, continue down there, and especially with the cotton, industry, and
yes.
So much of cotton dying this year. I don't know that dying is the right word. The loss of production this year compared to past years. I think that it really is opportunity time and opportunity to introduce the new crop and link arms with some of these existing industries. I was really curious about hemp production in rice fields. So it was, I'm interested, how is it viable now? If somebody's got a rice field, are they transitioning to hemp, or is the moisture and the water? Yeah, I'm kind of curious.
Well, I think, from the different parts of the low country that we visited, we like I said, we've grown in 5 different counties now. And all of them have proven to be number one successful growers. I think that it doesn't matter, because hemp doesn't like to be soggy necessarily, or have wet feet. Wet feet is the industry's lingo that we use a lot of times. We try not to go into those areas. We try to stay in areas that are higher elevation and has good drainage, where it won't necessarily affect the plant. So rice fields is something
I say that. Yeah, just because of that's what I was asking. Knowing how rice is grown, it's a question that had come up. So how do people get in touch with you? People are looking to work with you or support or get involved or talk business. How do people reach out?
Absolutely. We're at bossvillefarms.com. Is our website. You can email me at info@bossvillefarms.com.
I like that.
We're on all social media platforms pretty much. We haven't started our YouTube channel yet, but we're on all social media platforms. One that I definitely need to mention, and this is something, technology is a huge part of what we do. My family, my oldest son is a licensed drone pilot, and we took a class in July for drones. And so what we've been able to do is fly over our fields and collect data that gives us feedback through some software that helps us to make determinations on if it's enough do we need water there? Do we need fertilizer? What's the soil types? How are the plants looking? Are they healthy? You can glean a number of things from those pictures and some of the software that it gives you. So we offer those services as well. Air Bossville, that's a shameless plug. But
I love it. Yeah.
We definitely want to be able to, and I think it's important that we bring farming to present day. A lot of farmers right now are still doing things, and they work, a lot of them, but we have to engage people who understand technology and how to apply it to farming and how to apply it to agriculture so that we can move agriculture forward. When I was young, and I remember this, well, my oldest grandfather, and I say he's my oldest grandfather because he was 20 years my youngest grandfather, senior, he had a mule and a wagon, and we would go to the farm, and he literally would put, he had a mule that pulled sled and things like that. I remember those things from being a young child. But, now we are in a situation where technology has helped us in many ways, and if we use it properly, it can work. And so drones are one of the things that we're looking into to help us, grow our business, help us with our bottom line, help us do things that we normally could not do with traditional farming practices. So the drone technology is huge. We're even looking into ag drones that will be able to fertilize and spray our crops from the air.
Pesticides or anything.
Well, we try not to use pesticides, but definitely.
Well, I agree, try not to, right? But there are circumstances where it may be necessary in a certain region where you can isolate, or something that was really eye-opening for me, right? As I was talking to one of my girlfriends about updating her technology and getting away from her field staff, documenting everything on paper and then not getting those papers. So therefore you're missing that data. And I was like, well, why not just switch? And she was like, switch to what? And I was like, well, use this software. It's on their phone. She's like, we don't get cell service out there. We don't get internet out there. And it's like, oh yeah. There really are still some things in agriculture that us sitting behind the computer or in the machine shop are very disconnected from.
Definitely.
Or even, another one that was really eye-opening with the drones that was really powerful is that your field's dying or that your water line is broke before you lose agriculture, right? And
yes.
So the ability to see that way before the damage is done or before it's too late and you've got huge, dead patches, that's game changing for a farmer, especially a small farmer moving into a new commodity or a new crop. And
Indeed.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, we definitely, the drone technology, I think, is going to catapult us into a new stratosphere in a sense, because it gives you such a detailed overview of what your fields are doing, and that point of view from the sky is really awe-inspiring, really, when you start to see your land from that point of view and you get a live shot of what's going on. It really is a great thing.
It's pretty exciting. Okay, so what does future of acreage look like in South Carolina? What does scale look like, and what do you guys need in the region to really grow or to really make it an opportunity for people for it to make sense financially to get into?
Well, I think we've laid a pretty good foundation with information, and we've shown that we have. It's just not a one county. It's several counties in different parts of the state that have grown successfully. Now we just have to put the next pieces in place, a supply chain to help us move that along to grow it, to scale it, because we don't want to grow 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 acres and then not have a place to process those, or not have a place for the farmers to take them to get paid. So that's our next piece. That's why we're working, at a fever pitch to get the processing plant going. Like I've said, we have incentives already from the state in the millions of dollars, but we're looking for partners, financial partners to come in and help us to move it to expand. Now, we've proven it. We've shown that we can duplicate it if we need to. Now we just need to scale it up via processing and continue to grow. One of the big parts of what we do, Mandy, and I'm so one of the proudest moments that I have is our parties. We have 420 planting parties every spring, and for the last 2 years we've had them. And to see someone's face touch a seedling of hemp, and to watch them marvel at, wow, that is it. That's the plant, because it's been taboo for 100 years. So it's so many people that always they have interest. So we bring people to the farm and we let them take a plug and put it in the ground. So you planted a plant, take a picture with it. This is hemp. You're a part of a new revolution in the United States, especially. And those things really are what we are about. Yeah. We're about teaching and helping people to understand what this plant is. And that in itself has alleviated so many barriers between us and the local population, because in the low country, cannabis is taboo. It's called by as many street names but when people saw the fiber, they had no idea what that is. I've never seen a plant that we plant that tall is what we hear often. Even the state agencies, the South Carolina Agriculture Commission, when they came to do the testing, and young lady who came to our farm, she was blown away. She was like, "I've never seen a plant that big, that tall." But it's a learning curve for all of us. We're learning. We're sharing the information that we have, and we want partners that can help us move forward.
Yeah. Okay. So, you hear all the time in the industry, start with the end in mind when we talk about what we're putting into the ground. in your region, what would you say end products are going to be? I think it's going to be textile focused, composite focused. I'm kind of curious, and I ask because I think it plays, a huge role in what we're putting in the ground or the type of fiber we're looking to harvest, or, I've seen a few different times some beautiful, beautiful plants, but the lignin on them is so strong, it makes them next to impossible to separate the fiber, right? And so it's like this, balancing act of what works best. But yeah, what's your opinion on those end materials and targets you guys are going to go after?
So I want to focus on long fibers, strong fibers. I think that, those that are very strong, we can build machines that will help us to separate those fibers in the future. I think that we definitely want to look at the herd industry, building supplies. We've been in logging for 70 years, so we want to look at mimicking a lot of those supply chains in a sense. We want to supply herd and dust to people who want to make paper. And, we have huge paper plants here in the area. Down just south of us, Savannah, Georgia, there's some of the huge paper mills there. So we want to, kind of mimic some of those supply chains.
Well, it's a wood-like material, right? It's going to be working alongside or with those other materials as blends or substitutes, and the logging industry and the paper industry and anybody that uses a byproduct of wood is looking for a substitute that is more economical and environmental.
Regenerative, that's it, regenerative and smart. So that's what that's where we're going with that. We're awesome. Going to try and mimic that supply chain some. We also want to get into understanding cotton, how cotton, and we used this term before, and we all talk about, we don't like to use it, especially my guy, Bear Fiber, cottonized. He hates that. He hates that, but in a sense, it looks like that because, we were able to separate some of those fibers and it breaks down. It looks like, it's cotton-esque in a sense. But, we want to look at challenging all of those industries and making all of those offshoots a part of various industries, building, textiles, if necessary, if we can get there. You definitely, the ports are here, so getting something to the port of Savannah or the port of Charleston and getting it exported, we want to look at all of those opportunities that are available to us,
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, our next goal is getting the processing plant going. And here in Low Country, there are lots of people working on various things, but I think us being in this part of the country with the supply available through farms, we have quite a bit of farming here that can supply a processing plant and keep it running, probably 6 or 7 days a week. So, and we already have LOIs from people who are wanting to buy fiber from us when we're ready, so we're lining up all of the pieces. We've grown it, we've processed it so that we can have demonstrations for various people. We've networked with various farmers. We have commitments from farmers all over the Low Country now to grow this coming year. And, we want to make sure that we have a place for them to take it and process it, get it done. We've spoken to a couple of different vendors when it comes to equipment for processing, two different processes all together. And we want to put both of those in the same building and use it for various purposes, which we'll go into at a later
time. Is moisture a concern?
Not really. It is very humid in this area, but the plant does love humidity. What we found growing CBD and the industrial plants, that the moisture is good in the air. and they like it.
Also loves daylight.
It does love daylight. It does, and so our soils have proven to be good. Our atmosphere, very pressures are good. We don't get many torrential rains in the area. We did get a few last year, but that's uncommon. But we're looking to do great things for the low country here in South Carolina.
I think it's great, great. So, how can we help? How, if somebody's looking to connect, who fits inside that box?
Well, we've stayed self-funded for a reason. We wanted to prove our concept, and I didn't want to spend somebody else's money trying to prove something that I thought might work. Now that we have proved it, we're looking for someone who is open-minded, someone who can come in and understand the full process. This is not something that is going to turn around in 6 months or a year. We're looking for someone who wants to see hemp become a staple in the economy of South Carolina, and with resources that can help us move the ball forward. That's one thing that, like I said in the beginning, my grandfather taught me, you have to own. You need to own your land. You need to own the mill. And in this sense, the processing plant is the mill for us. So that's what our goals are. That's what we aim to do, and we're looking for people who want to, join with us.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
No, you go. I love listening. Keep going.
I was just going to say, it's important for me now, in my mid 50s, my children, I've been blessed to have, between me and my wife, we have 10 children, and seven of them have graduated from college.
Dang, good job.
One from Harvard he has a master's from Columbia. My oldest son graduated from my alma mater, Prairie University. And they've all graduated from other prestigious universities throughout the United States. And so I'm big on teaching them now what my grandfather taught me. Excuse me. But I want them to understand the importance of ownership and passing it on to the next generation. My oldest son has given me a granddaughter, and I laugh at him often. I laugh at him often as he matures as a dad. It's funny. But we want to make sure that when she gets to the age of maturity, and we're hoping that she understands. We want to teach her the importance of them, so she can give it to them and the other grandchildren that we have. So
yes,
that's
it's something that's so lost. I was talking about this a couple of weeks ago with a friend. You used to see farm acreage and property passed down to different generations, and now after so long, people have sold it off. The ability to maintain that farm, for generation after generation. I can't remember. I think it's less than 1% of farm owners are fifth generation. And so what do we do to reverse that? That it's an asset that you guys coming to the table with land is a huge value add to a project like this, especially initially on reduction for so many reasons. And so, yeah, I commend you, and I'm impressed because it really is a matter of changing the paradigm to a different way of thinking and adding a new crop into rotation that it requires a whole new process. The mill is no longer just the mill, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great thing. It's a challenge, but I often say to myself that my grandfather did it with a third grade education. Surely I can do this with a college degree or two,
It's 7. You have 7 others. You just said. And
Right.
no discredit to those without the college degree, right? Because there's a piece of mind,
absolutely not.
skill that, the amount of
just
knowledge these kids have had at the tip of their fingers, it's mind-boggling. And
it's unbelievable. It really is. And so we're trying to teach them to use that information to build something for yourself. And everybody who might have joined late, these pictures behind me are actual pictures from our farms. Here, that's me and my son. That's Coach Thomas Dawkins from Estill, South Carolina. He's been the ag director there for many years. And over here, that's my wife in one of the plots that we grew. I think that's Genma. And this is a picture of a tractor of ours. Oh, wrong way. Tractor of ours actually driving behind, so you can see how tall the plants are.
Crazy.
And so, I thank you very much, Mandy, for having me on and allowing us to talk about some of the things that we've been able to do.
Yeah.
We're the little guys, and we've done this all out of our pockets and from our own networking with farmers and with business people, and just talking and telling a story and listening to what they have to say, and then going back and putting those things into practice on a daily basis. So, we thank you again, and we appreciate it. We're looking, if you want to connect, please reach out to me. We're open. We love to talk. Everything is pretty dead right now, so there's really not a whole lot to see. We did I just finished some trials with this new, when the cold front came through, it killed everything. And someone was saying, you got to cover them. I was like, I don't, that would defeat the purpose of the trial. I want to keep it in as natural of an environment as possible. And I wanted to study what happens, how long does it take to grow from a bud out of the ground to an inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, and, share that data, I think is important. And so, we try to keep it as natural as possible. We are doing some stuff in hoop houses now for some of the CBD plants. We're still growing those because we have a brand to supply, and we want to make sure that, we continue to give good products that, and sell good products to people. But, we're definitely looking to grow this textile and the fiber side of the business to great heights.
Well, let's continue to be in touch. I'd love to support you. There's lots of questions that will come in about, especially farming. And I want to give a big shout out and a thanks to you guys. Reality is none of us processors or distributors or manufacturers or material science engineers could do it without you and your group. And so thank you. And thanks for all of your hard work, especially on the research side. It's a whole different ball game, starting from the seed and the soil, in a new industry, to picking up some processed material and turning it into a composite. And so thank you very much for everything you're doing. And, I'll say it again, we can't do it without the farmers. So for any of us out there that are in this business, keeping them in mind is our number one priority. And so you definitely see birds of the feather flock together, and more you're seeing support, I hope, for farmers and for your group. And so thank you very, very much, Derick. Thanks for everybody on your team. Anything else you want to add before we close off and say goodbye for the day?
Just please go to the website and sign up to our mailing list. Go to our social media platforms and follow us, please. Thank you very much, Mandy.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like, how do we connect with you, Derick? I'll share contact info again, but you want to say it one more time just so everyone has it?
Yes, bossvillefarms.com. You can email me, info@bossvillefarms.com, and you can see us on all social media platforms at Bossville Farms.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much. Anybody have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out or holler at any time. Thank you for everybody that joined. Next week, we have many more fabulous interviews. Jay, who was the founder of the Global Hemp Innovation Center, is going to be on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and so it'll be a great interview. You can find all of our events and interviews listed on either friendsofhemp.org or globalhempassociation.org under the events tab. Other than that, you guys, thank you so much for the great week. Thanks for everything, again, that you're doing, Derick. And don't hesitate to yell at me if there's anything I can do.
Will do. Thanks again, man.
Hey, thank you, guys. We'll see you later.